think we need to call it for what it is.
Secretary
There is
Clinton.
a legitimate reason to have a debate about things like migration. It went too far. It's been disruptive and destabilizing, and it needs to be fixed in a humane way with secure borders that don't torture and kill people.
I'll tell you, and I know it's low-hanging fruit, but it does bring me an extreme sense of joy to know how bitter she is and will always be because she never got to be president. And then specifically because of Donald Trump, of all people, Playboy, reality TV star, real estate mogul, board game inventor, Donald Trump took that away from her. This is a woman who spent her entire life trying to do that, whether it was her tenure in the Senate, her marriage to Bill Clinton, her refusal to leave Bill Clinton after the cheating scandal obviously occurred and embarrassed her simply because she thought, I'll bide my time, eventually I will become president. And then Donald Trump, of all people, took that away from her. That is the funniest thing possibly ever to happen. But with this rhetoric, you see this from Hillary Clinton. Barack Obama also went on a pod recently and expressed similar sentiments, saying that, obviously we have to have borders. We're a country. It just has to be humane. That's the caveat, right? Humane is language, of course, for amnesty. Humane is, of course, language for you've been here your whole life or for 5 minutes. What are we going to do? Just kick you out? It has to be humane. We have to have a pathway to citizenship. What this rhetoric is, first of all, is a strategy. Rhetoric itself is a weapon. It is a strategy. You may have remembered that in the period right before Donald Trump decided to pick up politics as a hobby and save the world, we had a lot of discourse on the right that was rapidly willing to start engaging with the left in a very real way. During the Obama era, a lot of conservative media and discourse was very focused on just like yelling at Obama. I'm not going to say that that was a bad thing, but in the kind of like post-Obama era where you're getting into like the 2012 through 2015, in his second term, as things are really starting to ramp up and it becomes obvious that we're losing bigly. It's not just that we have Barack Obama in office and, we're losing on healthcare. We don't have a good candidate. Mitt Romney got BTFO'd. John McCain got BTFO'd. Everybody still hates us because of the wars in the Middle East. Like, it wasn't just that. We were starting to lose in a very real way in terms of rapid leftist advances on social policy, Supreme Court rulings, the race stuff. Things were starting to ramp up in a very real way. And I think that conservative media responded to that by understanding that we're no longer in a position politically, demographically, culturally, to where we can still sit down in front of the old RE20 and complain about what Democrats are doing to the country as if we have the capital and ammunition to be on offense. It seemed to be that we realized like, oh, hey, so, me? What? I didn't say any of that. So let's talk it out. Let's have a dialogue. Look, we're all Americans at the end of the day, right? That is not language that comes from a position of confidence. People say that when they feel like they are losing. We were losing. You had an entire cottage industry of conservative media dedicated to, let's just talk it out with the people who want to kill us. Let's just talk it out with the people who want to trans our kids. It's fine. We can have civil dialogue. Millions and millions and millions of dollars were made doing this bit. Wonderful lifestyles were obtained doing this bit. And while it presents as well-intentioned, I think we can be honest with ourselves in understanding it was from a position of weakness. Nobody, especially in the game of politics, which is the game we're playing, wants to talk it out about questions of how society ought to be oriented, especially basic civilizational questions of how society ought to be oriented when they are in a position to themselves make those decisions. And so when I see this rhetoric from Democrats, increasingly, your bigger players, even though it is actually kind of hilarious how little influence the Clintons and Obamas really have over like the Democrat machine. I know people like to pretend that Obama's still puppeteering the whole thing. He doesn't have an interest in politics, dude. He is truly the perennial theater kid. Like he never really cared beyond that. He was happy to kind of just disappear after that. And, he gets wheeled out whenever they really need him to step up and be the guy and rally the troops or whatever. But you can tell that he really doesn't have a personal interest in politics. And Michelle Obama also doesn't. She actually hates it, from what I've heard, and from what she'll express publicly. But anyway, when they're making this kind of sentiment more publicly known, that is not because they're actually thinking about renegotiating, going back to the drawing board, taking the whole thing back to formula, reworking their immigration policy. This is about securing gains. That's all it is. They understand that they've gone from here to here. They probably don't have the capital to go any further. This is about taking your chips and cashing out and saying, hey, we're not crazy. We're not running on that platform anymore. We just want it to be humane. And because, unfortunately, Americans have been propagandized into wanting to believe that the Democrats are the good guys, insofar as they're expressing continued support for Republicans, it's less because they're willing to say, I agree with Republicans, and it's more because they're willing to say, well, the left has just gone crazy. What do you want me to do? That's not exactly the response that we want. That's not exactly a response that's indicative of victory. It's basically saying, look, the Democrat Party, the social incentives it provides, the rewards, the sense of status, intelligence, credentials, I want to be on that side. I want to be the good guy, but you guys are just being crazy. What do you want me to do in this situation? You're pushing me away. Democrats, why would I want to push you away? I love you. So that's kind of like what's going on right now. And so I think that the answer from Republicans has to just be calling them out on this and doubling down and saying, like, okay, put your money where your mouth is then. Why are you impeding ICE? Why are you flirting with secession rhetoric, civil war rhetoric? Because that's all this is. They're not actually going back on immigration. They never have gone back on immigration. There's this lie where people like to say, oh, well, you know, people like Bernie Sanders were actually against mass immigration because they understood it to be a tool of capital. There has been no meaningful opposition from the Democrat Party to mass immigration. They understand it is the best thing that could ever happen to them politically. That is not true. It has never been about the worker. It has never been about the American worker. Insofar as those voices have been represented in the national conversation, they were quickly and almost immediately usurped by people who only care about the worker in the sense that they care about the lower common denominators of society, the people, the masses, right? Anti-elite, anti-exceptionalism, egalitarianism, state-enforced equality, things of that nature. So they have no intention of ever going back on this as a policy platform. They may express that into a microphone to quell the anxieties of Americans who obviously view immigration to be an issue in the first place, rather than something that just like happens or doesn't happen. Do you think people in China, people in Russia, maybe Russia, but people in other countries don't really vote on immigration as an issue unless it is an issue because their predominant political party has allowed for the mass importation of people from the third world as a political strategy to fundamentally usurp the native political power of the country and install permanent global libtard victory? So when Americans express their concerns about immigration, that is directly an indictment of the Democrat Party. Nobody's expressing concern about immigration because they think Republicans, you know, what are you doing? You've got a minority of Democrats who, yeah, you're being too freaking mean. But when normal Americans, swing voters, when they're expressing that, it's because they're anxious about the open borders. They're anxious about what they see on TV. They're anxious about what they see in their communities. So it is a good strategy for Democrats to get into a microphone and say, no, 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 no. That stuff is extreme. We're not that guy anymore. Take us back. But it does have to be humane. That's the perfect recipe. And it also works well because they know that regardless of what they say into a microphone, they can still count on their base to understand the game of politics is being played. They understand that it doesn't matter if Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, whomever gets in front of a microphone and says, oh no, it just has to be humane. They understand that what that means is, okay, this is the PR, this is the optics, but still obviously we're going to pursue this. And so we won't freak out. We won't sow division. We don't have that on the right. We don't have that at all on the right. We've been doing the right thing. Our actions have been correct. We've been deporting all criminal aliens. Over 75% of criminal aliens that we're deporting do not have convictions for more extreme things. But then because Trump says, no, we're only going after the extreme cases, people choose to freak out. People choose to sow division, pretend that we're not playing the game of politics. So it's pretty obvious why we're in the position we're in terms of so many consecutive and compounding losses. People on our side do not possess the same temperament and skill for the game of politics that people on the left do. It's getting better. It's getting better more than I expected in terms of timeline. However, we are still very much on the back foot. So do not take the off-ramp. Do not let people say that because Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama said the right thing into a microphone once for their entire tenure in the public eye, that all of a sudden we can go back on the Democrat plantation. Have you not read Dinesh D'Souza's books? Have you not seen Dinesh D'Souza's documentaries? We're never going back. We're not going back to the Democrat plantation. We are looking north towards not Mar-a-Lago, to Trump Tower. That is our promised land. Trump Tower, 5th Avenue, Manhattan. That is where we're going, and we're never going back.